Thank you for joining us on this Monday, October 14th. I'm Paris Schutz. Coming up on Chicago Tonight, local analysis of the situation in Syria, the debate over Columbus Day, Jane Eyre at the Joffrey, and the latest on those controversial city scooters. But first tonight, negotiators took a break from the bargaining table today as thousands of teachers and school staff took to the streets calling for what they hope will be a fair contract. They have less than 3 days to reach a deal before teachers form picket lines Thursday morning. Brandis Friedman has been following this story. Brandis, what exactly happened today?
So, Paris, hundreds of union members from both the Chicago Teachers Union as well as SEIU Local 73 rallied first in the Chicago Temple. Now, the audience, of course, was a sea of the CTU's signature red, but also purple and gold, worn by the SEIU members. They represent teaching assistants, custodians, and other school jobs. Now, of course, what we heard from the podium wasn't so much about contract specifics as about their overall cause, a salary that they feel reflects the value of their work, and a lot of what CTU has been calling for months: librarians, nurses, counselors, classrooms that they say aren't overcrowded.
Mayor Lightfoot, we expect you to stand with us. You have a choice, but in the event the mayor chooses otherwise, we will shut it down.
Because we've been very patient, and we've waited, and we've negotiated, and we've waited, and we've negotiated. And we're going to walk. We're hoping for a settlement.
Lori Lightfoot, get on that right foot right now.
We have not secured smaller classes for our neediest children. We have not secured promises in writing for staffing. We have not secured benefits that help people, that don't cut into people's checks and erode our ability to have a standard of living.
Now, after the hour-and-a-half-long rally closed out, as you saw there, just by President Jesse Sharkey, who you just heard from, teachers and school workers marched through part of the loop, certainly around City Hall and past CTU headquarters.
So Jesse Sharkey was saying there are a lot of things they still don't have. What is the status of negotiations?
So, well, I'll be honest, Paris, you know, when we went into bargaining, when bargaining ended on Friday, going into the weekend, it did not look good. Sources from both CTU and CPS made it sound like a strike was inevitable. But then it seems like they made some progress on Saturday, with CTU presenting some counterproposals, the mayor saying that it's the most progress that she's seen up to this point. Now, she wasn't available for reporters today, but she did share a statement on Twitter.
All in all, our 72-page counteroffer provides more than 80 proposed changes to the collective bargaining agreement on issues requested by the CTU. Everything we put on the table is grounded in our fundamental respect for the dignity of teachers and school staff. And to all who will be taking part in today's rally, I want you to know that we hear you, and I respect what you stand for.
Now, I'm hearing from a source with the city that one of the problems that's been slowing negotiations down, Paris, is the CTU's bargaining unit. Used to be called the Big Bargaining Unit. These are 40 rank-and-file CTU members that are at the bargaining table, along with leadership and attorneys, of course. The union has long made the case that they've used these members to take the temperature of the membership on whatever is in the deal before presenting it to two much larger bodies, of course, the 700-member House of Delegates and the 25,000-member full membership.
Right. There's a lot of steps that have to be taken once there is a preliminary agreement. So when does a contract deal need to be reached?
So it's hard to tell, right? What needs to happen is CTU needs to reach a deal with the city within enough time to take that deal back to the House of Delegates. Again, 700 members there, in order for that House of Delegates to be the body that has the authority to call off a strike. Now, I'm learning just this evening that they already have an emergency meeting scheduled for Wednesday late afternoon. There, they will either vote on whatever potential deal may be on the table, or they will reaffirm their plans to walk out. Union Vice President Stacey Davis Gates says there is pressure to work this out, and for now, it sounds like both sides believe they're making some progress.
Suddenly, we see a proposal on the table about housing, about making things a little better for our students. So if there is a will to continue negotiating and pushing the envelope on the side of CPS and the city, we're going to be there to do it with them. We're going to have to get to a point of where we're partners, and that it does not take a threat of a strike to get people to speak in a very positive manner about transforming our schools.
And while it sounds like the conversations are getting more substantive, I'm hearing this from people on both sides. We haven't gotten to the finish line yet, Paris. I'm learning tonight both teams are back at the table actually just a few minutes ago, tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll likely return again tomorrow. And on our website, of course, we have more information for Chicago families, including where students can go if a strike does happen.
This is really going down to the wire. Brandis, thank you very much.
It usually does.
Yes, it does. And up next, the fallout in Syria and what it means for United States security.
Don't ever miss Chicago Tonight. Subscribe to our podcast. Get a daily download of our show delivered to your desktop or mobile device. Go to WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight Podcast and subscribe.
The president is under fire from both sides of the political aisle as the situation deteriorates in Syria. This as Turkish forces expand their incursion into Syria following President Trump's abrupt announcement to remove United States troops. Many in the military and political community say the U.S. has abandoned Kurds in northern Syria who led the fight to defeat the terrorist group ISIS. A local Republican congressman is slamming the move as showing, quote, weakness, while the president defends it, saying he wants to get out of so-called endless wars.
I don't think our soldiers should be there for the next 50 years guarding a border between Turkey and Syria when we can't guard our own borders at home.
They were involved in fighting ISIS on behalf of the United States of America willingly because we didn't want to put forces on the ground. And I was one of the first, I think I was the first congressman in Iraqi Kurdistan after they beat back the ISIS attack. And they were very determined to work with us. It's a shame. It's really, really a shame.
Joining us now are Cecile Shea, a former member of the U.S. Foreign Service and current senior fellow on security and diplomacy at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, and Robert Pape, professor of political science at the University of Chicago and director of the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. Welcome both of you back to Chicago Tonight. Cecile Shea, first, a quick history lesson. Why have U.S. troops been near the border of Syria, near Turkey?
Well, the U.S. has been in the area on and off since our invasion of Iraq in 2003. Most recently, the relatively small number of Special Forces troops who have been there have been working with a conglomeration of Kurdish forces and some Arab Democrats who are opposed to Bashar al-Assad in Syria, working in significant part to defeat the Islamic State and other really dangerous jihadists who were based in the Syrian area. There are thousands of them who have been imprisoned, their families have been imprisoned, as some of the Islamic State-controlled towns were liberated in the last year or two. Some of the Islamic State's supporters in those towns have been moved into camps. And we're talking about very large camps, tens of thousands of people in that area, which now appear to be unguarded. And so some of those people are able to move back towards Syria, to other areas in the Middle East, and the foreign fighters, and this is one of the alarming issues, may be able to make it back to Europe or to Indonesia and Malaysia from whence they came.
And Robert Pape, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, made it clear that he wanted to go into the northern part of Syria to take on the Kurds. Can you give us the primer on why the Kurds and Turkish forces have this clash?
Yeah, so the Kurds have been viewed as a problem by the government of Turkey for many decades. There have been Kurdish terrorist attacks inside of Turkey, not just kind of hypothetical, but suicide attacks that have killed many people, especially in the 1990s. So the whole issue of the Kurds, which is a subpopulation in Turkey, has been simmering, and there have been wars, really serious conflict over this before. But what we have right now is we had a situation where the U.S. troops, this just small number of troops, were a firewall in a tinderbox of problems in Syria. So we have 14,000 ISIS fighters, not in prison, but roaming around Syria. So ISIS may be gone as a territorial entity, but it's not defeated. And in fact, just earlier this year in Colombo, Sri Lanka, ISIS managed to orchestrate an attack that killed 260 people. So we shouldn't just look at this as there's no problem there. And those forces that are there in the thousand are helping to be a backbone for the Kurdish fighters, 100,000 of them, that have been helping us against the fight with ISIS. Now, at the same time, those 100,000 are viewed as a potential thorn in the side of Turkey. So we are a firewall in this really complex tinderbox. And for us to rip that firewall out, just like if you rip a firewall out in California right now, bad fire is going to happen, and that's just what we see.
And Congressman Kinzinger alluded to the fact that ISIS was instrumental in helping contain, the Kurds were instrumental in helping contain ISIS there. So what's Bashar Assad's role in this now, the leader of Syria?
Well, so Bashar al-Assad, remember, is to a great degree a client of Moscow, as was his father, as was his grandfather, as has been true for 50 or 60 years.
He's closely tied to Vladimir Putin.
Closely tied to Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin has had a very good week. I mean, the person who is the strongest of all in all of this after the last week is Vladimir Putin. And so the Syrians have decided, not surprisingly at all, I mean, completely predictable, with the Americans signaling that we will not defend the Kurds, that we are not there anymore. The Syrians have decided to also move into that northern area and to go after some of these Arab Democrats and Kurdish Democrats who have been also fighting Bashar al-Assad. It's one of the last areas of non-Syrian controlled territory in Syria. And so now we have the Syrians moving in militarily. You have the Turks bombing. The Syrians have now signed an agreement, though, with the Kurds today to make things even more complicated. And why did the Syrians sign an agreement with the Kurds? Because without the Americans there, they are very susceptible to the Turkish forces moving in. So they have now signed an agreement with the Kurds, backed, whether officially or unofficially, by the Russians, to work together to try to keep Turkish influence away from these towns along the border up there.
So what exactly do the Russians get out of that if the Syrians and Kurds strike a deal together against Turkey?
They get a lot of influence while America's influence disappears.
That's right.
So in terms of relative gains, if we're playing a game of geopolitics here, America's the huge loser, Russia is the huge winner, and the big losers here in the near term, there are 1 million civilian Kurds in this area who are facing artillery barrages, who are facing all kinds of problems. Already, the UN reports 160,000 refugees. That's like 16% of the population. So think about that for a moment. 16% of the population. On top of that, if we look further out, the big loser here is the American public, because we are setting the ground, creating the conditions for the rise of ISIS. There are other terrorist groups here who have started to take hold, and if we start to see that congeal, who are we going to go to for help? The Kurds? That's a laugh, okay? What we're stuck with is what Adam Kinzinger said, sending our army back. This is a big problem for the American public, just looking out over the horizon.
Well, now, there seems to be a couple of reactions tonight from the president. A, the threat of economic sanctions, and B, I think he's saying that there will be a troop presence back in the northern area of Syria. Is this enough to quell the problem?
No, I mean, the cat is clearly out of the bag at this point. We have lost the faith of our allies, of our partners. We pulled out while there were British and French troops on the ground without consulting with them first about how they would keep safe. We pulled out without consulting with American aid agencies and American aid workers on the ground who are now in danger and who are having to be pulled out in a very haphazard fashion. Even some of our people are in danger. So there's enormous damage, and now the president, frankly, is trying to salvage himself politically because he's come under, I think, unexpected criticism from the Hill. And so he said, well, we're going to sanction Turkey, but it's just too late.
And I would add just one one thing to that, which is that over time we forget there are 5,000 U.S. troops in a base called Incirlik, Turkey, and 50 nuclear weapons. 50 nuclear
and there are
weapons.
reports that the U.S. might want to remove those nuclear weapons.
And we should get them out of there right away, because if we slap major sanctions on Turkey, which are going to kill, according to President Trump, the Turkish economy, that little base can be blockaded. So the sanctions may not do any real good here in terms of reversing Turkey's behavior. What they could do is end up with Turkey retaliating for our sanctions by blockading that base. Those 5,000 people need electricity, they need food, they need water, and there are 50 nuclear weapons there. So the reason you're starting to hear the Pentagon essentially panic, so when you start to see those leaks in the Washington Post, that means you're in a panic mode.
There are officials in the Pentagon
and
they're leaking,
worried.
And the big winner again is Vladimir Putin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all of this chaos and disaster here
in NATO.
And NATO. So this is also Turkey's a NATO member. So now we're slapping major sanctions on a NATO member. We could possibly have this military confrontation. And what is that going to do to NATO?
Well, so the president's justification has been that he wants to end endless wars. Your reaction to that?
So if he wants to end endless wars, there are ways to do it. You consult with your military people. You give them a timeline. You don't have to make the timeline public like he's done in the past. You give them a timeline. You ask for a plan. You consult with your allies who are also working there. And you figure out a way to do it. Frankly, I would be opposed to it. Jim Mattis was opposed to it. That's why he resigned as Secretary of Defense. That's right. Yes. That's why he resigned. But there are ways to do it that are orderly and well planned and would have caused a lot less pandemonium than we have now. I mean, all of this points to real questions about the president's mental health or his ability to do the job, because if he can make a decision like this without consulting with anyone, what other decisions is he capable of making?
Very quickly, Robert Pape, he made this decision after a phone call with Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan. What do you think was said in that phone call?
I don't know, but Congress is right now going to start hearings on Syria. They should subpoena the phone records of that phone call. We need to not be guessing about the president's motives. We need not to be guessing about what the president is saying. When things are going this badly, we need to really understand what is the expectations that have been set. And this is a phone call which has already been listened to by many other people, but not by Congress and not by the American people. And given the consequences for the American people, I think Congress should do the right thing, which is to subpoena the records of that call.
All right. Well, we appreciate your views. Cecile Shea, Robert Pape, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have some important information for all WTTW viewers watching over the air. Around midnight tonight, WTTW will be going off the air to put a new transmitter into service and to change frequencies. We'll be off the air for 2 to 3 hours. So when we return, you'll need to rescan your TV to be able to find us. Cable and satellite viewers, you do not need to do anything. But again, if you watch WTTW over the air with an antenna, be sure to rescan your TV channels tomorrow so you can continue to receive WTTW. And you can get more information on all of this on our website, WTTW.com/news. An alleged murderer is denied bail after a weekend rampage. Amanda Vinicky has that story and more of what's making news in Chicago tonight. Amanda.
Paris, a judge calls it evil on steroids. A Cook County judge today denied bail to 66-year-old Christophe Merrick, who's accused of killing 5 of his neighbors at their Northwest Side condo building on Saturday. Prosecutors say police found notes in Merrick's home that said things like "no mercy" and "they have to pay for it." Merrick was facing eviction for not paying his mortgage or association fees. 4 victims were allegedly shot and killed as they sat down to dinner. Merrick allegedly then chased down and shot another neighbor. More on our website. Mayor Lori Lightfoot's loosening up her stance slightly on where marijuana can and can't be sold in the city once it's legal. Lightfoot originally wanted to ban retail sales in much of the central business and tourism area downtown. Critics balked. Now her office is floating a revised plan. It still restricts pot sales downtown, but marijuana dispensaries would be permitted in parts of River North. But the exclusion zone will extend farther north. In a statement, the mayor's office says the modified ordinance it's introducing tomorrow reflects input from aldermen, businesses, and from residents. There's growing evidence that treating your pup's pain with oral opioids doesn't work. It's common for dogs to be prescribed opioid pills after surgery or other trauma, but a word of caution from University of Illinois veterinary experts. Dogs metabolize the oral drugs differently. There's also the danger of humans abusing pets' opioid prescriptions. Students in Chicago and across the area weren't in school today, but it had nothing to do with a CPS strike. Marchers in the streets, again, not strikers, part of a parade. It's all for the holiday, Columbus Day, or what some say should instead be Indigenous Peoples Day. That debate is coming later in tonight's program. Either way, it's why no mail was delivered today, why banks and government offices were closed. Back to normal tomorrow. Now, as for the weather, tonight mostly clear with a low around 42 degrees. Tomorrow, a 50-50 chance for rain, otherwise cloudy, but a high near 61. And now, Paris, back to you.
Thank you, Amanda. Still to come on Chicago tonight, their words make history. Hear from two presidential speechwriters. Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, two sides of this historical and cultural debate. What a Joffrey ballet choreographer hopes audiences take away from her adaptation of Jane Eyre, opening on Wednesday. What are the next steps for the city's electric scooter program as the pilot ends tomorrow? And your thoughts on Governor Pritzker's plan to consolidate local police and firefighter pension funds in tonight's viewer feedback. But first, some of today's top business headlines from Crain's. Here's Ann Dwyer.
Thanks, Paris. Wall Street seemed reassured today by the news that Boeing has stripped its CEO, Dennis Muhlenberg, of his title as chairman of the board. It's a move that the Chicago-based aerospace giant says will allow him to focus more attention on resolving the crisis that has engulfed the company's 737 MAX jetliner in the wake of two fatal crashes that forced its worldwide grounding. Boeing stock climbed in early trading today before settling back down toward opening levels by mid-afternoon. Lead director David Calhoun, a senior executive at Blackstone Group, will take over as non-executive chairman. Meanwhile, Bloomberg is reporting that WeWork, one of the largest users of office space in Chicago, is considering a bailout that will hand control of the co-working giant to one of its largest investors. Japanese investment giant SoftBank is already the majority shareholder of WeWork, but the proposed deal would shore up its control of the startup, which is facing a severe shortage of cash. WeWork's board and backers are also weighing another option. JP Morgan Chase is leading discussions about a $5 billion debt package. And finally, the investors who redeveloped the former Tokyo Hotel into a budget-friendly hospitality option have cashed out. Crain's reports the River North Hotel, which now operates as the Freehand Hotel Chicago, has been sold as part of a $400 million deal. The British private equity firm Queensgate Investments bought the hotel at 19 East Ohio Street and three other Freehand brand properties from a venture of New York's Sidel Group and the private equity arm of California billionaire Ron Burkle. Those investors bought the building in 2013 for just $13.5 million. For Crain's Chicago Business and ChicagoBusiness.com, I'm Ann Dwyer. Back to you, Paris.
Thanks, Ann. President Donald Trump routinely harps on particular talking points in his sometimes controversial rhetoric on the campaign trail and in office. Throughout history, presidential speechwriters have played an important role in making sure a message hits home with the masses. Tomorrow night at Chicago's American Writers Museum, some presidential speechwriters will give the public a behind-the-scenes peek into their profession, and two of them join us tonight. They are Carolyn Curiel, who served as senior speechwriter to President Bill Clinton. She's also worked as a journalist at the New York Times, ABC News, and the Washington Post, and served as ambassador to Belize. And John McConnell, who served as a senior speechwriter for President George W. Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney, former Vice President Dan Quayle before that. And you're both sort of from around the region. You're from Bayfield, Wisconsin, and East Chicago, Indiana. So welcome back to your home territory. Hammond, Indiana. Gotcha. Close enough. So Carolyn Curiel, tell us the route you took to become a presidential speechwriter.
How much time do we have in this segment?
Well, we don't have a lot in this segment. Okay. The Cliff Notes.
So the Cliff Notes version is this. I was writing for Ted Koppel, and this was after having spent some time in journalism already with UPI, United Press International, and then the New York Times. I got a phone call from a friend with whom I used to work at the Washington Post, And I happened to say, wouldn't that be a cool job being a presidential speechwriter? That friend knew the chief speechwriter for Bill Clinton during the campaign, Governor Clinton, in the '92 campaign. And so he recruited me, basically, forced me to apply. I left Ted Koppel, who I adored.
So it just happens like that. John McConnell, how about you?
Well, I became a presidential speech writer in the best way possible. I went to work for a state governor who then got elected president. I worked for George W. Bush when he was governor of Texas. I had some experience beforehand in the speech writing trade, but that's how I went directly into presidential speech writing after the 2000 election.
All right, so give us some insight into the process. Does the president tell you exactly what notes they want to hit and then you just kind of come up with the whole thing, or do you have a lot more power to craft the narrative?
It's a mixed bag. It depends on the president, of course. But my experience was, and John, I think your experience is a little bit different. It's first it goes through policy people, and there are certain themes that the president needs to hit, certain issues he wants to hit. And events are scheduled, so scheduling is involved as well. There are many meetings, so many that at one point I said, when I was asked, do you need anything else from us? I said, time to write. Literally. So, and there were meetings with the president, too, a lot of meetings with the president, who had real thoughts about what he wanted. Bill Clinton knew policy better than anybody else writing for him.
And he was a good public speaker, so I'm sure he had a lot of input in that. And how about George W. Bush?
Well, you get a lot of direction from the president when it's a major address. State of the Union coming up, the president's going to have a lot of input on the front end. But if you're writing a speech such as the dedication of a museum or something like that, you don't need to go in and see the president necessarily and get his thoughts on that. Your job as a speechwriter for the president in this ceremonial event is to write something appropriate and to make sure that the president has enough time to review it and put his own imprint on it.
All right, so let's see one of the speeches given by former President George W. Bush right after 9/11. This is one that you wrote.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom. Our grief has turned to anger, and anger to resolution. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done.
So this is a joint speech to Congress right after 9/11. What did you want to accomplish with this speech?
Well, first of all, I hasten to add that it was a team effort. Mike Gerson, Matthew Scully, and I were the speechwriters responsible for the president's major addresses, and so that was something we would have done together. The president decided on Monday, September 17th, that he was going to give a speech to the Congress to speak about what had happened to the nation, what was expected of us now, to talk a little bit about the war we were in and how we were going to fight and win that war. And so we were given the instruction to write that speech and to have a draft ready the same day. And it was hard to do, and we came really close, but we couldn't get the draft done in a single day. But we finished it the next morning, and but he really gave us some very strong, close guidance on that one, too.
All right, Carolyn Creole, we're going to watch a video from President Clinton in a speech that you crafted.
Emancipation, women's suffrage, civil rights, voting rights, equal rights, the struggle for the rights of the disabled. All these and other struggles are milestones on America's often rocky but fundamentally righteous journey to close the gap between the ideals enshrined in these treasures here in the National Archives and the reality of our daily lives.
So this is a speech where he's talking about affirmative action, and the phrase that stuck from this was "Don't end it, mend it." What was the goal? I'm sorry.
Mend it, don't end it.
Mend it, don't end it. Okay.
Yes. Which almost got taken out, by the way.
Really?
Yes. There was a little, I won't say battle, but conversation in the Oval Office about that.
So did you win? You were
Yes.
you were on the favor of keeping it in.
Yes.
So what was your goal with this speech?
So there are misconceptions about affirmative action and what it really means. And the idea was to explain it in a way that the policy made sense. And the model that was used was the U.S. military, but also I could add sports, but it's a matter of ability. And so if you had a true blind test on color, ethnicity, whatever, who would be the best people? If you're in the military, you must be good to rise to the next level. The pool becomes smaller and smaller as you go up. And so that was used as an example. But this was after talking with many scholars on the issue of affirmative action, legal experts, but mostly President Clinton, who believed in his heart that this needed to occur, that this speech needed to be given. It was after many months of arguments at the table in the White House. That speech was not a given, but we got it done.
So there's a lot of people you have to consult. John McConnell, can you just tell us about the gravity you feel when each word, each phrase carries a special weight?
Well, one thing you try to do when you're writing speeches for the president is not to think about it in those terms, because I remember getting the question from friends, how does it feel to write for history? I'd say, I don't want to think about writing for history. I want to think about getting my job done. Because if you got too involved in thinking about how, well, this is going to be read 50 years from now, this is going to be analyzed, it's going to be gone over very closely by scholars, people smarter than I am, experts, that kind of thing. That wouldn't
quite a
help
case
you.
of writer's block.
That wouldn't help you in the writing process. You really want to get the job done, and you want to have the president's best thoughts in the best words you can find, and you want the things that you like about the president you work for to be seen by all the people who hear him speak. And so if you have a good relationship with the president you work for, as we both did, it makes your job easier.
And one of the qualities of former President Bill Clinton was that he ad-libbed a lot. So how did you deal with that when you were crafting an address?
So I wouldn't call it ad-libbed. He was a musician, remember, the saxophone. He'd riff. I always called it riffing when he did it. He didn't do it all the time. I mean, there was this notion that he didn't use any script. Of course he did. For the affirmative action speech, he actually used a teleprompter for that. But he knew the topics cold, and he had been studying them for much longer than any of his speechwriters had. So of course we respected it. After you'd worked hard on a speech, you hoped that he would glean something from it that he would use between the riffs.
Was there ever a time where you got a speech back just marked up in red ink saying, change it?
Oh, black ink.
Black ink.
Black Sharpie, which came in useful in that White House too. So.
Right. John McConnell, how about President Bush? He was kind of more a guy that stuck to script, wasn't he?
Yeah, he worked hard on his speeches. He was a real serious editor, and so by the time he got up to give the speech, it really represented what it was that he wanted to say. He would ad-lib at the beginning of the speech in his acknowledgments. It would thank the mayor and the congressman and the 8th grade band and everybody else. We wouldn't have to write acknowledgments for him. He would just do that on his own.
As I understand, he practiced in the White House screening room, the movie room.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did.
Any particular reason for that?
I think most recent presidents have found it a good place because they can set up the teleprompter and they close the door, and it's in a kind of a not a well-traveled area of the White House.
You can bring an audience too.
To the screening room, much smaller audience.
Speaking of audience,
a select audience.
Let's plug what's happening tomorrow night.
Well, we're going to do that. So Carolyn Curiel, John McConnell, thank you very much for being here. And you can get more information about tomorrow night's Presidential Speechwriters event at the American Writers Museum by going to our website. And up next, a debate over renaming and reimagining today's holiday.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the City Club of Chicago.
Smart people may disagree about what makes a great city, but part of what makes Chicago great is that we don't have to agree. To run a city like ours, a lot of issues come up. The City Club of Chicago is a place to debate those issues and hear from the men and women who shape the policies, lead the industries, and tell the stories that define our city. For the free and open exchange of ideas, the City Club of Chicago.
Today, of course, is Columbus Day, meaning much of state, local, and national government offices are typically closed for business. Here in Chicago, a parade down State Street celebrated Italian explorer Christopher Columbus. But for the past 30 years or so, a campaign for Indigenous Peoples Day to replace Columbus Day has gained traction across the country. Joining us to discuss their point of view on this holiday is Heather Miller, Executive Director of the American Indian Center, and Enza Rainieri, former president of the Joint Civic Committee of Italian Americans. Welcome, both of you, to Chicago Tonight. First, Enza, give us the history of how Monday became this particular federal holiday.
Well, absolutely. Actually, happy Columbus Day to you, Paris. Great to be here.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Indigenous Peoples as well. Actually, you know, this is the 67th year that we have been celebrating Columbus Day in Chicago. It's a permanent fabric of the city of Chicago with rich history. We're excited, that we've been able to celebrate, with all of our friends and neighbors. People from many faiths, people from many cultures have joined us at our parades. For example, today we had members from the Dominican Republic, we had Puerto Rican units, we had people from Mexico. We celebrate with everyone. So we're really excited.
And why is it particularly important to Italian Americans?
Well, it's particularly important because it's it's the part of the fabric of the city that we have become. It's a tradition in Chicago for over 67 years of having this celebration. As immigrants, and I'm a child of immigrants, it's very important for us to be able to celebrate our culture, to be able to celebrate everything that matters to us where it comes to what we've learned, becoming Americans, to being here in this country. So it's important for us to be able to continue to celebrate.
Heather Miller, why is this day controversial? Why is it controversial to celebrate Columbus?
Well, one of the things that's so important for us at the American Indian Center is this idea of being a constant invisible minority. So folks don't even realize that we're here. Oftentimes here, specifically in the city of Chicago, we're not mentioned in the history, we're not mentioned in the founding, and Indigenous people have been here since time immemorial. And so when we start thinking about Columbus and we start thinking about what actually happened in regards to his quote-unquote discovery of America, it's really time that we start looking at the facts of Columbus. Did he land on this United States that we now know?
And you're referring to the fact that there are historical accounts that Columbus, he had killed people, he had enslaved people. Is that what you're referring to?
That is absolutely what I'm referring to. With the arrival of Columbus, one of the things that happened was that this started the beginning of the slave trade. This opened up the doors to what eventually led to the colonization and genocide of several different tribes and tribal nations.
All right, Enzo Rainieri, your reaction to some of these historical accounts that paint this darker picture of Christopher Columbus?
Well, first let me say I'm sorry to hear you say that you feel invisible, because last year Governor Bruce Rauner signed into law Indigenous Peoples Day, which is celebrated the last Monday of September every year. And the General Assembly voted for that unanimously. So I was actually surprised to not have seen a celebration of such this year. And I would say that on behalf of the Joint Civic Committee of Italian Americans, we would love to partner with you in that. Actually, Anthony DeLuca, a state representative from Chicago Heights, was very diligent in working to make that happen here in Illinois.
There is a state Indigenous Peoples
Day.
There is
here in Illinois, which is a year old, and I would have expected that there would have been, as I said, we would love to work with you to make it happen.
Your reaction to some of these darker historical accounts?
I can say this, that's the type of discussion, Parrish, that should happen at a much more in-depth place. It's my understanding that Alderman Roderick Sawyer is very open to having open discussions about this issue. That's where that really belongs. We can't cover that here in 7 minutes.
All right, so Heather Miller, Mayor Lightfoot today acknowledged both holidays. Where would you like to see this go?
I would love to see a change in this holiday, just because I think it then helps to create a different story around the founding of the United States, one that actually tells the true history of this nation, and I think that's important.
I think that it's also important to understand that, confiscating a holiday from one ethnic group does not just affect Italian Americans. What we're basically saying is that, if you don't like what we stand for, and it could be the Polish community, could be the Greek community, could be any community, is that we want to take this away from you. Let's work together. Let's work with the City Council and have an open discussion. Columbus Day is Columbus Day and has been for some time, and I'm looking forward to celebrating the 68th annual National Parade here in Chicago, the 69th, and the 70th.
Heather Miller, has Indigenous Peoples Day grown across the country? I mean, what's the status in other places?
It absolutely has. So this year, D.C. passed a one-year resolution to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. 14 states across the country have now adopted Indigenous Peoples Day, and several other cities have also taken on that initiative. We know just here locally, Evanston has made the change, Oak Park has made the change. So there are several people that are taking a look at this.
And what about your reaction to what Enza is saying about Italian Americans? This is a holiday that's been very important to them. It celebrates their heritage. Are you sensitive to that plight?
Absolutely. So I think that one of the things that I would like to see is that we truly celebrate the amazing contributions that Italian Americans have made to this country and recognize their heritage just in a way that's more positive. One of the things with Columbus is that he truly does represent a genocidal effect of what happened to marginalize and get rid of indigenous people. And so I would love to see a holiday where we're coming together and really celebrating the amazing contributions of Italian Americans and celebrating their history.
Enzo Ranieri, is there another Italian American that you would want to have sort of an official holiday to celebrate?
Well, I think that Columbus Day celebrates all.
I would say Frank Sinatra.
I
but
would
that's
say,
just
of
me.
course. I mean, listen, we can add him, but you know,
Yeah.
Columbus Day is a celebration of all of everybody in Chicago. It's all of Italian Americans. It's all of it embodies what we stand for, having been a fabric of the city for many, many years. It's not just about Christopher Columbus. It's about our culture. You know, he opened the doors to the Western world. I mean, you're talking about a navigator who took it upon himself to take 3 ships to the unknown. And discovered and opened up to a world that, we did not know before. That takes tremendous courage. And I do not think that, confiscating one holiday from one group means that it's going to make it better for anyone else. As I said, Indigenous Peoples Day exists in Illinois. I was surprised, I'm shocked that we're still having this conversation that nothing has happened. The Illinois General Assembly unanimously voted for this last year. Let's work on having an event next year on the last Monday of September and make it a great day.
What about that, Heather Miller? Is that a date that you would want to celebrate?
Yeah, so when we learned about Indigenous Peoples Day getting unanimously passed, it was a shock to us.
So you weren't part of crafting
we weren't
that
part
legislation.
of that. And so having our voice left out and not bringing us to the table is exactly what we're talking about here. We want to make sure that there is an accurate telling of Native history of this continent and of America as we now know it. And so having holidays that actually accurately reflect that, to me, is incredibly important for our community as well.
It is my understanding that that legislation did include, having a very in-depth discussion and overview and a respect for Indigenous people, and that it was pretty much laid out pretty clear that the whole intent was to make sure that, everything that Indigenous people have done to, be a part of this country would be respected. So I think that may be something that we could work on together.
Seems like there's a solution here in the offing that
Absolutely.
makes everyone happy. All right, Heather Miller, Enzo Ranieri, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. No problem.
Thank you.
Choreographer Kathy Marston's adaptation of Charlotte Bronte's novel Jane Eyre is headed to the stage of the Joffrey Ballet. Arts correspondent Angel Ito shares a preview ahead of its premiere.
Kathy Marston's technique is different than most choreography. Described as a very unique acting class, the choreographer says she creates movement based on the quotes taken directly from the 19th century novel by Charlotte Bronte.
I really draw inspiration from words and translate them into movement so that every movement that you will see on stage has a very specific meaning and intention. Whereas when I'm creating with dancers, the movement comes from inside. It does use a classical technique, so you will see pirouettes, you'll see point work, you'll see, high legs and lines and lifts and so on. But all of the movement is about the intention rather than about the technique. The technique is only there to underpin the emotion or the narrative that the dancers are trying to express. And that's something that I think I bring always to my choreography that's quite personal.
Now, Kathy Marston's adaptation of Jane Eyre started at the Northern Ballet in the United Kingdom before making its way to the American Ballet Theatre, and now it's here at the Joffrey Ballet. The story of Jane Eyre explores an orphan's journey of self-discovery through several hardships. Constantly struggling between the desires of her heart and her head, lead dancer Amanda Cesena says conveying these emotions through movement has taken a lot of practice.
Playing Jane has been definitely something about finding the person that she is. She's such a complex character. I feel like her mind expands to so many different thoughts and she has so much going on in her head, but on the outside she's quite a composed person. So I've had to, play with that a lot, and I'm really enjoying the process of getting to know Jane and diving into her mind, into her heart deeper and deeper, because even though she's a very smart woman and she uses her head for a lot of things, she throughout the story of the book, she learns to listen to her heart.
With the Chicago Philharmonic playing a combination of Fanny Mendelssohn and Schubert, Marston says its timely but contemporary feel adds to the turbulence of emotion she works to capture throughout the story. It's Marston's ability to tell this story through movement based on literature that encouraged artistic director Ashley Weeder to invite her to work with the company.
She's using the language of ballet, but it's also hybridized. So I think you could say it's really like theater and dance theater. And just how she has told the story and unfolded the story, it's so beautifully crafted. And I was really compelled by the work. And I thought that we, the Joffrey, would probably do an amazing interpretation of this. Knowing the company, knowing the dancers in the company, I think that people always say that the Joffrey dancers are really great actors as well.
While acting may be something the company is used to, it's also come with challenges that Marston says are for the better.
It's really challenging for the dancers, but I think in a good way. I mean, who doesn't want to get into these stories where you can live on stage so vividly? And I think the dancers here at Joffrey have really connected with that process. And it's an emotional ride for them. And they will be changed at the end of the evening. And I hope that will pass over the stage to the audience. I hope the audience will feel that change as well.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
Jane Eyre opens at the Joffrey Ballet October 16th and runs through the 27th. And now to Amanda Vinicky and the latest on those oft-talked-about Chicago scooters. Amanda.
Thanks, Paris. Chicago's e-scooter pilot program ends tomorrow. The city says 2,500 scooters were taken out for about 800,000 rides since mid-June. Supporters say they're a fun way to get around and can connect riders to public transit. Critics say they're a safety hazard with limited benefits. The Active Transportation Alliance, in concert with several community organizations, has a report out today with recommendations for next steps. And joining us to talk about that survey and the community meetings that informed the report are Jeremy Cuevas of the Northwest Side Housing Center, also Kyle Whitehead of the Active Transportation Alliance. Thanks so much for being here, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
No, Kyle, Active Transportation Alliance surveyed 1,500 Chicagoans about these scooters. What did you find?
About 2/3 of people wanted Chicago to keep the scooters around. When people rode a scooter at least once, support went up to 91%. So you mentioned people describe them as fun and a good way to get around. So we've supported Chicago establishing a long-term program if we focus the efforts on increasing riding in parts of the city that really lack transportation options, like Belmont-Cragen, where Jeremy works.
And Jeremy, so you did hear from, I held, I believe, about a dozen community meetings on this. What did you hear?
Yeah, so we met with youth, small businesses, community residents, community stakeholders, just to get their feedback on the scooters, because we know that one day there was no scooters, then one day they just showed up in our community.
And they're everywhere.
And they're everywhere. They were in front of businesses, they were in front of schools, so there was a lot of questions about, are these scooters for us, are they for rent, or what are they here for? So we just had community meetings. We met with our young people on a daily basis, and we just talked about how can we use these scooters and to get around to our schools, and how can we use them to get around to public transportation.
You mentioned that once people actually get on one, they have a tendency to say, hey, bring them back, keep these things around. Do both of you ride the scooters, and for what?
Yeah, so I rode the scooters a ton. I can say that I spent a couple $100s on the scooters. Most of it came from some of our young people who never been on scooters.
Okay, so you were paying it forward.
A, they don't have a debit card. B, they can't afford the scooters. So I just scanned opened up the app and scanned it for them, and they were able to ride around their neighborhood, show their friends, show their family. So most of our young people use them for that. I used it to get around to different meetings. My wife takes the car to work, so I have to get around Belmont-Cragen, which is a fairly big community. So I take it from the office to Steinmetz High School to other places in our community.
Now, are they safe, though? Fun, maybe. but
so
safe?
There's some things we don't know. You know, the injury and crash data isn't out there yet. We do know that the real safety problem on our streets is cars and trucks. Because of the size of those vehicles and the speed of those vehicles, they have the ability to do damage to other people in a way that a scooter or a bicycle, for example, does not. I know that, you know, when people ride scooters, especially those who have experience on a bike, they say it's not quite as stable. You know, it takes a learning curve. The data shows that
A pothole can really mess you up.
Accidents are most common on your first ride, so it's really about education. I know Jeremy has worked with some of the companies to educate and prepare riders, because oftentimes the accidents and crashes are happening when people are hopping on for the first time.
But I mean, cars and trucks, they're not going anywhere.
Well, I know they may not be going anywhere in the short term, but we need to think about longer term about how to design our streets for all forms of transportation, especially in the more dense areas like downtown, where walking, biking, and public transit are available and accessible. And there's just so many people moving in and out of the city that we want to see more people riding transit, more people walking and biking, which is why we've suggested keeping the scooters out of downtown and reallocating street space from cars and trucks to walking, biking, and public transportation.
Walking, biking, and scooting. What is the environmental benefits of these, or is there even one?
So, you know, there are definitely some environmental benefits, especially when you compare it to driving or riding in an Uber or a Lyft. You know, unlike a bicycle, it's not carbon-free, or you do have a small motor, and then there's also environmental harm being done when they're moving scooters around and balancing the scooters. But certainly, you know, it's more sustainable than driving an SUV all over the city, especially given the, you know, the safety impacts and the equity impacts.
If somebody's taking a scooter instead of a car.
Yeah.
But perhaps not if they're taking a scooter instead of a bike.
Yeah.
Now, where should these scooters be used? Right now, it's a limited radius, a limited scope.
Sure. So in our community, Belmont-Cragen, our youth call it a transportation desert. There's no divvy stations in our community. We partnered with Active Trans, and they came out with a community report card based off of wards. And in Belmont-Cragen, it's comprised of 3 different wards. And within the 3 wards, we average a D- when it comes to bike lanes, on-time buses, bunching of buses. So in Belmont-Cragen, there's not many options when it comes to Belmont to transportation. And when we do have those options, they're either failing us or they don't exist. So with these scooters, I know the priority area was we were one of the priority areas, which was phenomenal because, like I said, we're in a transportation desert. So they should be used in the smaller neighborhoods in the communities.
Why scooters over other forms of transit? Should scooters be the priority over better bus service?
Sure. I don't think the scooters should be priority. I think we need to create a rhythm and a balance of bettering our CTA, getting more bike lanes out there, and using the scooters as a mode of transportation. So I don't think they should be #1 priority, but there needs to be a balance when it comes to different options, especially for our youth. There's 27,000 youth in Belmont-Cragen. Most of them can't drive, so they take the bus, they take the bikes, or they take the scooters. So there should definitely be a rhythm when it comes to transportation in our communities.
When we talk about scooters being used as a way for people who maybe don't have access to public transportation or cars, what are your recommendations, particularly in this report, to try to make them serve that purpose, to not just be a joyride, but to help somebody get to and from a destination?
So, I mean, incentivizing transit trips is a big one. So trying to make scooters available at the bus stop or the train stop, and maybe offering a discount if people are parking their scooters at a train or bus stop is one example. And really focusing them in areas that lack access to reliable and fast public transit like Belmont-Cragen. And this is why we support retaining those priority areas where 50% of the scooters have to be put in the parts of the city that lack transportation options.
And we don't have much time left, but briefly, I know one of the complaints is you see them littered on on sidewalks, on lawns. Should they be scattershot or should they be docked?
I think there needs to be more education when it comes to scooters. We need people to know where they can ride them. I know they have the little stickers on them and the little pamphlets, but there needs to be more education. If we did more intentional education, I think that people would follow the rules.
And we're going to have to leave it there, and we will be waiting for the city to come out with its report on whether these scooters will be back or not. Thank you so very much to Kyle Whitehead with the Active Transportation Alliance, and also to Jeremy Cuevas with the Northwest Side Housing Center. And now, Paris, back to you.
Amanda, thank you. Before we go, some viewer feedback. Illinois Congressman John Shimkus, a Republican, says he no longer supports President Donald Trump after Trump's decision to pull American troops from Syria. Shimkus is not seeking re-election in 2020. You shared your thoughts on his remarks. I'm not objecting to his decision, but where has he been the last 2.5 years that this is what caused him to distance himself? Ending endless wars is something Trump campaigned on. It should not be a big surprise to this congressman. I would rather he concentrate on what is going on in Illinois, not Syria. Those end-of-service Republicans are so brave. Our troops are dying and being set upon in a foreign civil war while people back in Chicago sit around in their comfortable homes talking stupid and taking partisan shots at our president. Governor J.B. Pritzker's proposal to consolidate local firefighter and police pension funds drew this reaction. Do it quick. This idea punishes towns that have kept up with payments and rewards towns that have not. It may not make everyone happy, but we must do something about pensions. There are no perfect solutions. And you reacted to the Field Museum's new meteorite containing stardust that predates the solar system and apparently has an interesting scent. At least it doesn't smell like pumpkin spice. It's just kind of mind-blowing that this came from another planet, yet resembles a rock from our planet. Makes you wonder what else is out there. Fascinating, trying to wrap my mind around the fact that this meteorite has been around that long. According to Joni Mitchell, we too are stardust. Oh, so it's not a giant brownie. As always, we appreciate hearing from you. Join the discussion on Facebook and Twitter or post your comments on our website. And that's our show for this Monday night. Please join us tomorrow night live at 7. The latest on contract negotiations as Chicago teachers prepare to walk off the job. And the story of how 2 reporters, including one from Chicago, uncovered decades of alleged sexual harassment and abuse by Harvey Weinstein. And before we go, a reminder again, some important information for all WTTW viewers watching over the air. Around midnight tonight, WTTW will be going off the air to put a new transmitter in service and change frequencies. We will be off the air for about 2 to 3 hours. When we return, you'll need to rescan your TV to be able to find us. Cable and satellite viewers do not need to do anything. But again, if you watch WTTW over the air with an antenna, be sure to rescan your TV channels tomorrow so you can continue to receive WTTW. And you can get more information on our website, WTTW.com/news. And now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices. Robert Clifford is the honoree of this year's Illinois Bar Foundation's annual fundraising event that raises money to enhance the availability of justice for those without attorneys throughout the state.